And joining us now is Rita Ferrandino, the treasurer of Sarasota's Democratic Party, Jack Brill, the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Sarasota, and political analyst Jeffrey Aronson. Thank you all for joining us. So
Thank you.
There will be fewer politicians in Cleveland, no Bushes, no McCains or Romneys, but a lot of sports stars and music stars. Does this make a difference to the public who will be watching, Jack?
I think this is going to be such a unique convention. I had a voter call me today, an 85-year-old gentleman, and he was talking about what can he do to support Trump. And he said, this is the first time in 60 years I can vote for somebody that's not part of the establishment. And he was totally excited. I mean, it was a great conversation. So, you know, it's going to be, you know, you're going to have sports folks there, obviously non-political, but, you know, they're going to mix it up. It's going to be a unique convention, something we haven't seen in the past.
You know, it was just a couple of months ago. We were almost sure this was going to be a brokered or an open convention, that it didn't seem that there was any way out of this. And, you know, it just didn't happen, Jeff. But are there still challenges for Donald Trump there? Because after all, the Never Trump movement was basically killed off yesterday.
There are challenges within the party, and they're not going to prevail. But of course, they're going to make some noise, despite the official rules killing off the Never Trump movement. And let's remember 1968, when there was an orchestrated convention inside the hall, but outside all hell was breaking loose. And with armed factions on both sides coming to Cleveland and open carry laws and all kinds of demonstrators heading there, it could be a lively convention.
But we don't know if that's going to happen.
No, we don't know, of course not. But it's not an impossibility.
And Rita, if you heard our dear friend Rod Thompson in Ray's story saying his advice to Donald Trump would be to focus, zero in on Hillary Clinton because of her high negatives. But I would imagine, as a Democrat, you would point out that Mr. Trump has also historically high negatives himself. So what do you think that Trump needs to do, and how do you think that Democrats should react to it?
Well, I think the really interesting story of the week is that it's been nationally reported, and right here in Sarasota, that Donald Trump actually has very little ground game in place in all of the key states. And it was reported nationwide that he is understaffed in Florida, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Alabama. I mean, the list was huge. So I think that what's really interesting about this convention is that usually the convention is your pivot point for the party operatives and the field operation to get into gear. And he doesn't have any of that in place. And he doesn't have the party establishment behind him. I think what's much more interesting is who's not showing up at the convention.
But let me stop you there for just 1 second, because Hillary has obviously been pouring millions of dollars into Florida. It's hard to turn on the TV right now without seeing a Hillary Clinton commercial. She also has an incredible amount of staff in Florida. They just opened their new headquarters up the road in Tampa. But according to the latest polls, Trump is either tied, slightly in the lead. A new poll came out today saying he's down 8, but it's close. So if
down 8 is not close.
No. But
it is not close.
That's this week. But next week it'll have 5 other polls.
Hillary Clinton has been very clear that she believes that the way you win is through a field game. It's person to person. It's putting people knocking on doors. It's mobilizing people. So she has put her investment in the state of Florida, as all of the key states, in people. And I think that's going to be what takes her across the finish line.
And a week from Monday, there are 24, I think approximately 24 staff people for Trump that will be back in town. The doors are open. I know our party, we've got our volunteer action team already. It's been in place.
There have been reports that there have been next to no people in that office for weeks and weeks and weeks. I know because
that I can't dispute with you, but I'm saying I know that there's 24 people coming. They'll be arrived week from Monday morning.
Jeff, let me ask you this question, because traditionally a party's nominee gets a bump coming out of their convention, and then the next party to hold the convention, their nominee gets a bump. There's something really unusual this year. The conventions are only a week apart. So does that hurt Trump from the perspective that just when you would think that he would get his bump, you're going to have the Democratic nomination kind of stealing the thunder?
Yeah, to a degree, but the bumps tend to be temporary. If you look at the polling trajectories over presidential elections in the past, it lasts no more than 2 or 3 weeks. So it'll be cut short a little bit this time. I get a kick out of hearing people saying that this is going to be a non-establishment convention. Donald Trump is part of the establishment. It's just not the party establishment. He's part of the entertainment and New York establishment. But, establishment, the political establishment is only a distinction that inside baseball people make, so to speak. And most folks out there who are watching the convention, and there won't be very many, by the way.
You're going to be record audiences for this convention. There has been on every debate all the way through. Donald Trump got the most votes in the primaries of any Republican candidate ever.
A record audience in a track record, a historical track record of very few people watching the convention is not that impressive. What I'm saying is the American people, in general, are not terribly politically interested, except during the last few weeks of a campaign. There's been vast.
But it has been for both parties their opportunity to basically, you could call it an infomercial if you'd like, but it gives an opportunity for both candidates to basically frame their argument.
Oh yeah, of course.
But Jack, let me ask you this. I mean, bringing out Hall of Fame coaches and athletes, how does that translate to votes in the fall? That
gives the more realistic perspective. It's people that the
professional athletes give the realistic perspective.
But
okay.
You've got a lot of the family members. There's
Tim Tebow doesn't even play anymore.
But Tim Tebow's not going. He wasn't invited. So you have to look at looking at you don't see the same Washington scripted speeches. What a lot of the folks in the primaries are saying is they wanted to see something different, and that's what they're going to see this year. Plus, you've got the platforms. This is the most pro-Israel platform that came out of the Republican Party in a very long time. And
part of the culture
it's
wars.
Not particularly pro-LGBT rights.
No.
It's not particularly.
It's a fairly conservative, but
it's very conservative.
But it's what the folks are looking for that's not Washington.
And don't downplay the fact that you're going to hear a lot of traditional political speeches from Republican politicians. This is their chance to get in front of prime time and to make traditional.
On both sides.
Is Marco Rubio going?
He's doing a video.
Because he's too busy to go?
Well,
he's probably being with his family like Vern Buchanan is.
I don't know his schedule, Rita, so I'm not going to say. But I'm sure he's got,
But your original question was, is there an advantage to Hillary Clinton for having the last speaking gig? And I think there really is. I think the fact that she is going to be the first woman candidate from a major political party is going to be a really big rallying cry, and it's going to end that whole convention on an up note. It's going to take her right into Labor Day.
But traditionally, when one party is having their convention, the other party gives them their due, and they step off the stage for a couple of days, and vice versa. And any predictions about whether that will take place now, or is it going to be a food fight for the next 2 weeks?
Based on what we're seeing so far, it's going to be a food fight all the way through. And you're right. Normally, traditionally, there is a downtime, and you give everybody the opportunity to have their conventions. As we've seen through this whole primary season, all bets are off this year.
And we'll have to leave it there. I appreciate it, and boy, are we going to have fun next week. We'll be back in just a minute.